Praise the Lord, everyone. This is Brother Harlan Parrott coming to you again today. We're continuing our study on God's plan for mankind. We're in the dispensation of conscience, and we're at the part where that Satan is actually trying to corrupt all the human stock, the original human seed, so that Christ, the seed of the woman, could not come and save mankind from their sin. And he did this in many ways. In Genesis chapter 6, he actually did it by causing the sons of God, or the angels, to come down and take upon themselves bodies like humans and marry the daughters of Adam, and of course all the daughters of men that were multiplied at that time. And then he tried to kill all the people of Israel that went down into Egypt. He tried to kill all the male children that were born down in Egypt because they were multiplying so greatly. And then over here we just read the last lesson about David's line being singled out as to be the seed, which the seed of the woman should come. And so Satan has it planned now to try to destroy the seed. We're going to pick up where we left off. 2 Chronicles chapter 21 verse 17. And they came up unto Judah and brake into it and carried away all the substance that was found in the king's house, and his sons also, and his wives, so that there was never a son left, save Jehoaz, the youngest of his sons. 2 Chronicles 22 verse 1. And the inhabitants of Jerusalem made Ahaziah his youngest son king in his stead, for the band of men that came with the Arabians to the camp had slain all the eldest. So Ahaziah the son of Jehoram king of Judah reigned. 2 Chronicles 22 verse 10. But when Athaliah the mother of Ahaziah saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the seed royal of the house of Judah. 2 Chronicles 23 verse 3. And all the congregation made a covenant with the king in the house of God, and he said unto them, Behold, the king's son shall reign, as the Lord hath said of the sons of David. There was one time when there was only one little baby boy left in the direct line of Jesus Christ. 2 Kings chapter 11 verse 1 through 21. And when Athaliah the mother of Ahaziah saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the seed royal. But Jehosheba, the daughter of King Joram, sister of Ahaziah, took Joash the son of Ahaziah, and stole him from among the king's sons which were slain, and they hid him, even him and his nurse, in the bedchamber from Athaliah, so that he was not slain. And he was with her hid in the house of the Lord 6 years, and Athaliah did reign over the land. And the 7th year Jehoiada sent and fetched the rulers over hundreds with the captains and the guard, and brought them to him into the house of the Lord, and made a covenant with them, and took an oath of them in the house of the Lord, and showed them the king's son. And he commanded them, saying, This is the thing that ye shall do. A third part of you that enter in on the Sabbath shall even be keepers of the watch of the king's house, and a third part shall be at the gate of Sur, and a third part at the gate behind the guard. So shall ye keep the watch of the house, that it be not broken down. And 2 parts of all you that go forth on the Sabbath, even they shall keep the watch of the house of the Lord about the king. And ye shall compass the king round about, every man with his weapons in his hand, and he that cometh with the ranges, let him be slain, and be ye with the king as he goeth out and as he cometh in. And the captains over the hundreds did according to all the things that Jehoiada the priest commanded, and they took every man his men that were come in on the Sabbath with them that should go out on the Sabbath, and came to Jehoiada the priest. And to the captains over hundreds did the priest give King David's spears and shields that were in the temple of the Lord, and the guard stood, every man with his weapon in his hand, round about the king, from the right corner of the temple to the left corner of the temple, along by the altar and the temple. And he brought forth the king's son, and put the crown upon him, and gave him the testimony, and they made him king, and anointed him, and they clapped their hands and said, God save the king. And when Athaliah heard the noise of the guard and of the people, she came to the people into the temple of the Lord. And when she looked, behold, the king stood by a pillar, as the manner was, and the princes and the trumpeters by the king, and all the people of the land rejoiced and blew with trumpets. And Athaliah rent her clothes and cried, Treason, treason. But the Jehoiada the priest commanded the captains of the hundreds, the officers of the host, and said unto them, Have her forth without the ranges, and him that followeth her kill with a sword. For the priest had said, Let her not be slain in the house of the Lord. And they laid hands on her, and she went by the way by the which the horse came into the king's house, and there was she slain. And Jehoiada made a covenant between the Lord and the king and the people, that they should be the Lord's people, between the king also and the people. And all the people of the land went into the house of Baal, and brake it down, his altars and his images brake they in pieces thoroughly, and slew Mattan the priest of Baal before the altars. And the priest appointed officers over the house of the Lord, and he took the rulers over hundreds, and the captains, and the guard, and all the people of the land, and they brought down the king from the house of the Lord, and came by the way of the gate of the guard to the king's house, and he sat on the throne of the kings. And all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was in quiet, and they slew Athaliah with the sword beside the king's house. 7 years old was Jehoash when he began to reign. This war went on until Satan, through the wicked Haman, tried to destroy all of Israel. We find this in Ezra chapter 3, verse 6 through 13. And he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had showed him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai. In the first month, that is the month Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast pur, that is the lot, before Haman from day to day, and from month to month, to the 12th month, that is the month of Adar. And Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, There is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people, neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have the charge of the business, to bring it into the king's treasuries. And the king took his ring from his hand, and gave it unto Haman the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy. And the king said unto Haman, The silver is given to thee, the people also, to do with them as it seemeth good to thee. Then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month, and there was written according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenants, and to the governors that were over every province, and to the rulers of every people of every province, according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, in the name of King Ahasuerus was it written, and sealed with the king's ring. And the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces, to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. Esther chapter 6 verse 1. On that night could not the king sleep, and he commanded to bring the books of records of the chronicles, and they were read before the king. Next, Satan tried to destroy the seed of the woman when he did come. Matthew chapter 2 verse 16. Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem and in all the coasts thereof, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. Luke chapter 4 verse 16 through 30. And he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day, and stood up for to read. And there was delivered unto him the book of the prophet Esaias. And when he had opened the book, he found the place where it was written, The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he hath anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised, to preach the acceptable year of the Lord. And he closed the book, and he gave it again to the minister, and sat down, and the eyes of all them that were in the synagogue were fastened on him. And he began to say unto them, This day is this scripture fulfilled in your ears. And all bare him witness, and wondered at the gracious words which proceeded out of his mouth. And they said, Is not this Joseph's son? And he said unto them, Ye will surely say unto me this proverb, Physician, heal thyself. Whatsoever we have heard done in Capernaum, do also here in thy country. And he said, Verily I say unto you, no prophet is accepted in his own country. But I tell you of a truth, many widows were in Israel in the days of Elias, when the heaven was shut up 3 years and 6 months, when great famine was throughout all the land. But unto none of them was Elias sent, save unto Sarepta, a city of Sidon, unto a woman that was a widow. And many lepers were in Israel in the time of Eliseus the prophet, and none of them was cleansed, saving Naaman the Syrian. And all they in the synagogue, when they heard these things, were filled with wrath, and rose up and thrust him out of the city, and led him to the brow of the hill whereon their city was built, that they might cast him down headlong. But he, passing through the midst of them, went his way. The Jews tried to kill him many times, but he supernaturally escaped them until the hour of the cross came, when he was to defeat the powers of darkness and bruise the serpent's head. We found this first written in Genesis 3:15. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. John 19 verse 30. When Jesus therefore had received the vinegar, he said, It is finished. And he bowed his head and gave up the ghost. Colossians 2 verse 14 through 17. Blotting out the handwriting of ordinances that was against us, which was contrary to us, and took it out of the way, nailing it to his cross. And having spoiled principalities and powers, he made a show of them openly, triumphing over them in it. Let no man therefore judge you in meat, or in drink, or in respect of an holy day, or of the new moon, or of the Sabbath days, which are a shadow of things to come, but the body is of Christ. Hebrews chapter 2 verse 14 through 18. Forasmuch then as the children are partakers of flesh and blood, he also himself likewise took part of the same, that through death he might destroy him that had the power of death, that is, the devil, and deliver them who through fear of death were all their lifetime subject to bondage. For verily he took not on him the nature of angels, but he took on him the seed of Abraham. Wherefore in all things it behooved him to be made like unto his brethren, that he might be a merciful and faithful high priest in things pertaining to God, to make reconciliation for the sins of the people. For in that he himself hath suffered being tempted, he is able to succor them that are tempted. 1 John 3 verse 8. He that committeth sin is of the devil, for the devil sinneth from the beginning. For this purpose the Son of God was manifested, that he might destroy the works of the devil. The second eruption of fallen angels was evidently smaller in number and more limited in area. They were for the most part confined to the land of Canaan, for their offspring were known as the nations of Canaan. They were known as Rephaim. Genesis 14 verse 5. And in the 14th year came Chedorlaomer and the kings that were with him, and smote the Rephaims in Ashtaroth Karnaim, and the Zumams in Ham, and the Emams in Shaveth Kiriathaim. Genesis 15 verse 20. And the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Rephaims. Deuteronomy 2 verse 11. Which also were accounted giants as the Anakims, but the Moabites called them Emams. Deuteronomy chapter 2 verse 20 and 21. That also was accounted a land of giants. Giants dwelt therein in old time, and the Ammonites called them Zamzummams, a people great and many and tall as the Anakims, but the Lord destroyed them before them, and they succeeded them and dwelt in their stead. Deuteronomy chapter 3 verse 11 through 13. For only Og king of Bashan remained of the remnant of giants. Behold, his bedstead was a bedstead of iron. Is it not in Rabbath of the children of Ammon? 9 cubits was the length thereof, and 4 cubits the breadth of it, after the cubit of a man. And this land which we possessed at that time from Aurora, which is by the river Arnon, and half Mount Gilead, and the cities thereof, gave I unto the Reubenites and to the Gadites, and the rest of Gilead and all Bashan, being the kingdom of Og, gave I unto the half tribe of Manasseh, all the region of Argob with all Bashan, which was called the land of giants. Joshua 12 verse 4. And the coast of Og king of Bashan, which was of the remnant of the giants that dwelt at Ashtaroth and at Edrei. Joshua 13 verse 12. All the kingdom of Og in Bashan, which reigned in Ashtaroth and in Edrei, who remained of the remnant of the giants, for these did Moses smite and cast them out. Joshua chapter 15 verse 8. And the border went up by the valley of the son of Hinnom unto the south side of the Jebusite, the same is Jerusalem, and the border went up to the top of the mountain that lieth before the valley of Hinnom westward, which is at the end of the valley of the giants northward. Joshua 17 verse 15. And Joshua answered them, If thou be a great people, then get thee up to the wood country, and cut down for thyself there in the land of the Perizzites and of the giants, if Mount Ephraim be too narrow for thee. Joshua 18 verse 16. And the border came down to the end of the mountain that lieth before the valley of the son of Hinnom, and which is in the valley of the giants on the north, and descended to the valley of Hinnom, to the side of Jebusite on the south, and descended to Enrogel. The word for giants in the above passages is Rapha. It's found in the Strong's Concordance, number 7497 in the Hebrew Dictionary. It's pronounced Raphal or Raphal, from Hebrew 7495, Rapha, in the sense of invigorating a giant, Rapha, Rephaim. See also the Hebrew 1051, beeth Rapha. Anakim, Numbers 13:22. And they ascended by the south, and came unto Hebron, where Ahiman, Sheshai, and Talmai, the children of Anak, were. Now Hebron was built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. So the Anakim were also giants. Deuteronomy 1:28. Whither shall we go up? Our brethren have discouraged our hearts, saying, The people is greater and taller than we. The cities are great and walled up to heaven, and moreover, we have seen the sons of the Anakims there. Deuteronomy 2, verse 10 and 11. The Emims dwelt there in time past, a people great and many and tall, as the Anakims, which also were accounted giants as the Anakims, but the Moabites called them Emims. Deuteronomy 2:21. A people great and many and tall, as the Anakims, but the Lord destroyed them before them, and they succeeded them and dwelt in their stead. Deuteronomy chapter 9, verse 2. A people great and tall, the children of the Anakims, whom thou knowest, and of whom thou hast heard say, who can stand before the children of Anak. Joshua 11, verse 21 and 22. And at that time came Joshua and cut off the Anakims from the mountains, from Hebron, from Debir, from Anab, and from all the mountains of Judah, from all the mountains of Israel. Joshua destroyed them utterly with their cities. There was none of the Anakims left in the land of the children of Israel. Only in Gaza, in Gath, and in Ashdod there remained. Joshua 14, verse 12 through 15. Now therefore give me this mountain, whereof the Lord spake in that day. For thou heardest in that day how the Anakims were there, and that the cities were great and fenced. If so be the Lord will be with me, then I shall be able to drive them out, as the Lord said. And Joshua blessed him, and gave unto Caleb the son of Jephunneh Hebron for an inheritance. Hebron therefore became the inheritance of Caleb the son of Jephunneh the Kenizzite unto this day, because that he wholly followed the Lord God of Israel. And the name of Hebron before was Kirjath Arba, which Arba was a great man among the Anakims, and the land had rest from war. They're called Horam, Genesis 14, verse 6, and the Horites in their Mount Seir unto El Paran, which is by the wilderness. Deuteronomy 2, verse 12. The Horams also dwelt in Seir beforetime, but the children of Esau succeeded them when they had destroyed them from before them, and dwelt in their stead, as Israel did unto the land of his possession, which the Lord gave unto them. Deuteronomy 2, verse 20 and 21. That also was accounted a land of giants. Giants dwelt there in old time, and the Ammonites called them Zamzumims, a people great and many and tall, as the Anakims, but the Lord destroyed them before them, and they succeeded them and dwelt in their stead. They called Avim, Deuteronomy 2, verse 23. And the Avims which dwelt in Hazram, even unto Asa, the Caphtarims, which came forth out of Caphtor, destroyed them and dwelt in their stead. Joshua 13, verse 3. From Sihor, which is before Egypt, even unto the borders of Ekron northward, which is counted to the Canaanite, 5 lords of the Philistines, the Gezathites, and the Ashdothites, and the Ashkelonites, the Gittites, and the Ekronites, and the Avites. They're also called Zamzumim, Deuteronomy 2, verse 20. That also was accounted a land of giants. Giants dwelt therein in old time, and the Ammonites called them Zamzumims. There are other names they are called, and they are enumerated in Genesis chapter 15, verse 18 through 21. In the same day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, Unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates. The Kenites, and the Kenizzites, and the Zadmonites, and the Hittites, and the Perizzites, and the Rephaims, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Girgashites, and the Jebusites. Exodus 3, verse 8. And I am come down to deliver thee out of the land of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land unto a good land, and a large, unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto the place of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Exodus 3, verse 17. And I have said, I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt unto the land of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, into a land flowing with milk and honey. Exodus 23 verse 23. For my angel shall go before thee, and bring thee into the Amorites, and the Hittites, and the Perizzites, and the Canaanites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, and I will cut them off. Numbers 13:22. And they ascended by the south, and came into Hebron, where Ahiman, Sheshai, and Talmai, the children of Anak, were. Now Hebron was built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. Deuteronomy 7 verse 1. When the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, and hast cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites, and the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. Deuteronomy 20 verse 17. But thou shalt utterly destroy them, namely the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, as the Lord thy God hath commanded thee. Joshua 12 verse 8. In the mountains, and in the valleys, and in the plains, and in the springs, and in the wilderness, and in the south country, the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. These were to be utterly destroyed by the sword of Israel, just as the flood had destroyed the ones that had lived in the dispensation of conscience. Deuteronomy 7 verse 1 through 5. When the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, and hast cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites, and the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. And when the Lord thy God shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them. Neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son, for they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. So will the anger of the Lord be kindled against you, and destroy thee suddenly. But thus shall ye deal with them. Ye shall destroy their altars, and break down their images, and cut down their groves, and burn their graven images with fire. Deuteronomy 20 verse 17. But thou shalt utterly destroy them, namely the Hittites, and the Amorites, the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, as the Lord thy God hath commanded thee. Joshua 3 verse 10. And Joshua said, Hereby ye shall know that the living God is among you, and that he will without fail drive out from before you the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Hivites, and the Perizzites, and the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and the Jebusites. Israel failed in this purpose, so the giants were left to test and prove the chosen people of Israel. Joshua 13 verse 13. Nevertheless the children of Israel expelled not the Jeshurites nor the Maacathites, but the Jeshurites and the Maacathites dwell among the Israelites until this day. Joshua 15 verse 63. As for the Jebusites, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the children of Judah could not drive them out, but the Jebusites dwell with the children of Judah at Jerusalem unto this day. Joshua 16 verse 10. And they drave not out the Canaanites that dwelt in Gezer, but the Canaanites dwell among the Ephraimites unto this day, and serve under tribute. Joshua 17 verse 18. But the mountain shall be thine, for it is a wood, and thou shalt cut it down, and the outgoings of it shall be thine, for thou shalt drive out the Canaanite, though they have iron chariots, and though they be strong. We find this also in Judges chapter 1 verse 19 through chapter 2 verse 5. And the Lord was with Judah, and he drave out the inhabitants of the mountain, but could not drive out the inhabitants of the valley, because they had chariots of iron. And they gave Hebron unto Caleb, as Moses said. And he expelled thence the 3 sons of Anak. And the children of Benjamin did not drive out the Jebusites that inhabited Jerusalem, But the Jebusites dwell with the children of Benjamin in Jerusalem unto this day. In the house of Joseph they also went up against Bethel, and the Lord was with them. And the house of Joseph sent to describe Bethel. Now the name of the city before was Luz. And the spies saw a man come from out of the city, and they said unto him, Show us, we pray thee, the entrance into the city, and we will show thee mercy. And when he showed them the entrance into the city, they smote the city with the edge of the sword. But they let go the man and all his family. And the man went into the land of the Hittites, and built a city, and called the name thereof Luz, which is the name thereof unto this day. Neither did Manasseh drive out the inhabitants of Bethshean and her towns, nor Taanach and her towns, for the inhabitants of Dor and her towns, nor the inhabitants of Ibleam and her towns, nor the inhabitants of Megiddo and her towns, but the Canaanites would dwell in that land. And it came to pass, when Israel was strong, that they put the Canaanites to tribute, and did not utterly drive them out. Neither did Ephraim drive out the Canaanites that dwelt in Gezer, but the Canaanites dwelt in Gezer among them. Neither did Zebulun drive out the inhabitants of Kitron, nor the inhabitants of Nahalal, but the Canaanites dwelt among them, and became tributaries. Neither did Asher drive out the inhabitants of Acco, nor the inhabitants of Zidon, nor of Alab, nor of Akzib, nor of Helba, nor of Aphik, nor of Rehob, but the Asherites dwelt among the Canaanites, the inhabitants of the land, for they did not drive them out. Neither did Naphtali drive out the inhabitants of Bethshemesh, nor the inhabitants of Bethanath, but he dwelt among the Canaanites, the inhabitants of the land. Nevertheless, the inhabitants of Bethshemesh and of Bethanath became tributaries unto them, and the Amorites forced the children of Dan unto the mountain, for they would not suffer them to come down to the valley. But the Amorites would dwell in Mount Heres, in Ajalon, and in Shalbim. Yet the hand of the house of Joseph prevailed, so that they became tributaries. And the coast of the Amorites was from the going up to Akrabim, from the rock and upward. Chapter 2, verse 1. And the angel of the Lord came up from Gilgal to Bochum, and said, I made you to go up out of Egypt, and have brought you into the land which I sware unto your fathers. And I said, I will never break my covenant with you, and ye shall make no league with the inhabitants of this land. Ye shall throw down their altars, but ye have not obeyed my voice. Why have ye done this? Wherefore I also said, I will not drive them out from before you, but they shall be as thorns in your sides, and their gods shall be a snare unto you. And it came to pass, when the angel of the Lord spake these words unto all the children of Israel, that the people lifted up their voice and wept, and they called the name of that place Bochum, and they sacrificed there unto the Lord. Judges chapter 3, verse 1 through 7. Now these are the nations which the Lord left to prove Israel by them, even as many of Israel as had not known all the wars of Canaan, only that the generations of the children of Israel might know, to teach them war, at the least such as before knew nothing thereof, namely the 5 lords of the Philistines, and all the Canaanites, and the Sidonians, and the Hivites that dwelt in Mount Lebanon, from Mount Baal Hermon unto the entering in of Hamath. And they were to prove Israel by them, to know whether they would hearken unto the commandments of the Lord, which he commanded their fathers by the hand of Moses. And the children of Israel dwelt among the Canaanites, Hittites, and Amorites, and Perizzites, and Hivites, and Jebusites, and they took their daughters to be their wives, and gave their daughters to their sons, and served their gods. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and forget the Lord their God, and serve Baalim and the groves. The giants made trouble for Israel until the time of David, when the last of the races of the giants were killed. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 1 through 58. Now the Philistines gathered together their armies to battle, and were gathered together at Shochoh, which belongeth to Judah, and pitched between Shokel and Azekah and Ephes-dammim. And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together and pitched by the valley of Elah, and set the battle in array against the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on a mountain on the one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side, and there was a valley between them. And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines, named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span, and he had an helmet of brass upon his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of brass, and he had greaves of brass upon his legs, and a target of brass between his shoulders. And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron, and one bearing a shield went before him, and he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel, and said unto them, Why are ye come out to set your battle in array? Am not I a Philistine, and ye the servants to Saul? Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. If he be able to fight with me, and to kill me, then will we be your servants. But if I prevail against him, and kill him, then shall ye be our servants, and serve us. And the Philistines said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man, that we may fight together. And when Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistines, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Now David was the son of that Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and he had 8 sons. And the man went among men from an old man in the days of Saul. And the 3 eldest sons of Jesse went and followed Saul to the battle. And the names of his 3 sons that went to the battle were Eliab, the firstborn, and the next unto him Abinadab, and the third Shammah. And David was the youngest, and the 3 eldest followed Saul. But David went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. And the Philistine drew near morning and evening, and presented himself 40 days. And Jesse said unto David his son, Take now for thy brethren an ephah of this parched corn, and the 10 loaves, and run to the camp to thy brethren, and carry these 10 cheeses unto the captain of their 1,000, and look how thy brethren fare, and take their pledge. Now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah fighting with the Philistines. And David rose up early in the morning, and left the sheep with the keeper, and took and went as Jesse had commanded him, and came to the trench as the host was going forth to the fight, and shouted for the battle. For Israel and the Philistines had put the battle in array, army against army. And David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage, and ran into the army, and came and saluted his brethren. And as he talked with them, behold, there came up the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spake according to the same words, and David heard them. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him, and were sore afraid. And the men of Israel said, Have ye seen this man that is come up? Surely to defy Israel is he come up. And it shall be that the man who killeth him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel. And David spake to the men that stood by him, saying, What shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, and taketh away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God? And the people answered him after this manner, saying, So shall it be done to the man that killeth him. And Eliab his eldest brother heard when he spake unto the men, and Eliab's anger was kindled against David. And he said, Why camest thou down hither, and with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know thy pride and the naughtiness of thy heart. For thou art come down that thou mightest see the battle. And David said, What have I now done? Is there not a cause? And he turned from him toward another, and spake after the same manner. And the people answered him again after the former manner. And when the words were heard which David spake, they rehearsed them before Saul, and he sent for him. And David said to Saul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine. And Saul said to David, Thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. And David said unto Saul, Thy servant kept thy father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went out after him, and smote him, and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he rose against me, I caught him by his beard, and smote him, and slew him. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God. David said, Moreover, the Lord hath delivered me out of the paw of the lion, and out of the paw of the bear. He will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said unto David, Go, and the Lord be with thee. And Saul armed David with his armor, and he put an helmet of brass upon his head. Also he armed him with a coat of mail. And David girded his sword upon his armor, and he essayed to go, for he had not proved it. And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. And David put them off him, and he took his staff in his hand, and chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook, and put them in a shepherd's bag, which he had even in a scrip. And his sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. And the Philistine came on and drew near unto David, and the man that bare the shield went before him. And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth, and ruddy, and of a fair countenance. And the Philistine said unto David, Am I a dog, that thou comest to me with staves? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And the Philistine said to David, Come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the fowls of the air, and to the beasts of the field. Then said David to the Philistine, Thou comest to me with a sword, and with a spear, and with a shield, but I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. This day will the Lord deliver thee into mine hand, and I will smite thee, and take thine head from thee, and I will give the carcasses of the host of the Philistines this day into the fowls of the air, and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. And all this assembly shall know that the Lord saveth not with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. And it came to pass, when the Philistine arose and came and drew nigh to meet David, that David hasted and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. And David put his hand in his bag, and took thence a stone, and slang it, and smote the Philistine in his forehead, that the stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell upon his face to the earth. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and smote the Philistine, and slew him, but there was no sword in the hand of David. Therefore David ran and stood upon the Philistine, and took his sword, and drew it out of the sheath thereof, and slew him, and cut off his head therewith. And when the Philistines saw their champion was dead, they fled. And the men of Israel and of Judah arose and shouted, and pursued the Philistines until thou come to the valley and to the gates of Ekron. And the wounded of the Philistines fell down by the way to Sharaim, even unto Gath, and unto Ekron. And the children of Israel returned from chasing after the Philistines, and they spoiled their tents. And David took the head of the Philistine, and brought it to Jerusalem, but he put his armor in his tent. And when Saul saw David go forth against the Philistine, he said unto Abner, the captain of the host, Abner, whose son is this youth? And Abner said, As thy soul liveth, O king, I cannot tell. And the king said, Inquire thou whose son the stripling is. And as David returned from the slaughter of the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Saul, with the head of the Philistine in his hand. And Saul said to him, Whose son art thou, thou young man? And David answered, I am the son of thy servant Jesse the Bethlehemite. 2 Samuel 21, verse 15 through 22. Moreover, the Philistines had yet war again with Israel, and David went down, and his servants with him, and fought against the Philistines. And David waxed faint. And Ishbi-benob, which was of the sons of the giant, the weight of whose spear weighed 300 shekels of brass in weight, he being girded with a new sword, thought to have slain David. But Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, succored him, and smote the Philistine, and killed him. Then the men of David sware unto him, saying, Thou shalt go no more out with us to battle, that thou quench not the light of Israel. And it came to pass after this, that there was again a battle with the Philistines at Gob. Then Sibbecai the Hushathite slew Saph, which was of the sons of the giant, and there was again a battle in Gob with the Philistines, where Elhanan the son of Jair Oregim, a Bethlehemite, slew the brother of Goliath the Gittite, the staff of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. And there was yet a battle in Gath, where was a man of great stature, that had on every hand 6 fingers, and on every foot 6 toes, 24 in number, and he also was born to the giant. And when he defied Israel, Jonathan the son of Shimeah, the brother of David, slew him. These 4 were born to the giant in Gath, and fell by the hand of David and by the hand of his servants. 1 Chronicles 20, verse 4 through 8. And it came to pass after this, that there arose war at Gezer with the Philistines, at which time Sibbecai the Hushathite slew Sippai, that was of the children of the giant, and they were subdued. And there was war again with the Philistines, and Elhanan the son of Jair slew Lahmi, the brother of Goliath the Gittite, whose spear staff was like a weaver's beam. And yet again there was war at Gath, where was a man of great stature, whose fingers and toes were 24, 6 on each hand and 6 on each foot. And he also was the son of the giant. But when he defied Israel, Jonathan the son of Shimeah, David's brother, slew him. These were born unto the giant in Gath, and they fell by the hand of David and by the hand of his servants. There's some inconsistent translations in the King James Version. Rephaim, the Hebrew word Rapha. The giants were well known and often mentioned in Scripture, but unfortunately, instead of their proper name being retained in certain passages, it is variously translated dead. Proverbs chapter 2, verse 18. For her house inclineth unto death, and her paths unto the dead, or the Rephaim. Proverbs 9, verse 18. But he knoweth not that the dead are there, and that her guests are in the depths of hell. Proverbs 21:16. The man that wandereth out of the way of understanding shall remain in the congregation of the dead, or the Rephaim. Isaiah 14, verse 9. Hell from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth. It hath raised up from the thrones all the kings of the nations. The Rephaim here are the giants that were actually in hell, that were going to be stirred up to meet Satan at his coming. They're translated deceased in Isaiah 26, verse 14. They are dead, or Rephaim, they shall not live. They are deceased, or Rephaim, they shall not rise. Therefore hast thou visited and destroyed them, and made all their memory to perish. So these particular giants, that were part angel, part human, don't even have a resurrection, according to that scripture. They're translated giant in 2 Samuel chapter 21, verse 16 through 22. And Ishbi-Benob, which was of the sons of the giant, the weight of whose spear weighed 300 shekels of brass in weight, he being girded with a new sword, thought to have slain David, but Abishai the son of Zeruiah succored him, and smote the Philistine, and killed him. Then the men of David sware unto him, saying, Thou shalt go no more out with us to battle, that thou quench not the light of Israel. And it came to pass after this, that there was again a battle with the Philistines at Gob. Then Sibbecai the Hushathite slew Saph, which was the sons of the giant. And there was again a battle in Gob with the Philistines, where Elhanan the son of Jair Oregim, a Bethlehemite, slew the brother of Goliath the Gittite, the staff of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. And there was yet a battle in Gath, where was a man of great stature, that had on every hand 6 fingers, and on every foot 6 toes, 24 in number, and he also was born to the giant. And when he defied Israel, Jonathan the son of Shimeah, the brother of David, slew him. These 4 were born to the giant in Gath, and fell by the hand of David and by the hand of his servants. We see this again, the same thing in 1 Chronicles 20, verse 4 through 8. It translated giants in the plural in Deuteronomy 2 verse 11, which also were accounted giants as the Anakims, but the Moabites called them Emims. And we're talking about these Rephaim here. Deuteronomy 2:20. That also was accounted a land of giants. Giants dwelt therein in old time, and the Ammonites called them Zamzumims. Deuteronomy 3 verse 11 through 13. For only Og, king of Bashan, remained of the remnant of giants. Behold, his bedstead was a bedstead of iron. Is it not in Rabbah of the children of Ammon? 9 cubits was the length thereof, and 4 cubits the breadth of it, after the cubit of a man. And this land which we possessed at that time from Aurora, which is by the river of Arnon, and half Mount Gilead, and the cities thereof, gave I unto the Reubenites and to the Gadites. And the rest of Gilead and all Bashan, being the kingdom of Og, gave I unto half the tribe of Manasseh, all the region of Argob with all Bashan, which was called the land of giants. Joshua 12 verse 4. And the coast of Og, king of Bashan, which was of the remnant of the giants that dwelt at Ashtaroth and at Adriah. Joshua 13 verse 12. All the kingdom of Og in Bashan, which reigned in Ashtaroth and in Adriah, who remained of the remnant of the giants, for these did Moses smite and cast them out. Joshua 15 verse 8. And the border went up by the valley of the son of Hinnom unto the south side of the Jebusite, the same as Jerusalem, and the border went up to the top of the mountain that lieth before the valley of Hinnom westward, which is at the end of the valley of the giants northward. Joshua 17 verse 15. And Joshua answered them, If thou be a great people, then get thee up to the wood country, and cut down for thyself there in the land of the Perizzites and of the giants, if Mount Ephraim be too narrow for thee. Joshua 18 verse 16. And the border came down to the end of the mountain that lieth before the valley of the son of Hinnom, and which is in the valley of the giants on the north, and descended to the valley of Hinnom to the side of Jebusite on the south, and descended to En-rogel. The word for dead, deceased, giant, and giants in the above passages is Rapha, as found in the Hebrew of Strong's Concordance number 7496 in the Hebrew Dictionary. It's from the Hebrew 7495, Rapha, in the sense of the Hebrew 7503, Rapha. Properly lay, in effect figurative, a ghost as dead, in the plural only, dead, deceased. The ordinary word for giants is Nephil, a bully, a tyrant, or a giant. We find this in Strong's Concordance in the Hebrew Dictionary, number 5303, and is translated Nephil, or Nephil, from Hebrew 5307. Naphil, properly a feller, in effect a bully or a tyrant or a giant. Genesis 6 verse 4. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. Numbers 13 verse 33. And there we saw the giants, the son of Anak, which come of the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. The second word for giants in Numbers 13:33 is Gibor. It actually comes from the Hebrew Dictionary of Strong's Concordance number 1368. It's translated Gabor, or shortened Gibber. Intensive from the same as the Hebrew 1397, powerful, by implication a warrior, a tyrant, a champion, a chief, excel, giant, mighty man, strong man, valiant man. Why was not Rephaim retained as the proper name in all these passages, as it is in those listed above and in 2 Samuel 5:18? The Philistines also came and spread themselves in the valley of Rephaim. 2 Samuel 5:22. And the Philistines came up yet again and spread themselves in the valley of Rephaim. 2 Samuel 23:13. And 3 of the 30 chief went down and came to David in the harvest time into the cave of Adullam, and the troop of the Philistines pitched in the valley of Rephaim. 1 Chronicles 11:15. Now 3 of the 30 captains went down to the rock to David and to the cave of Adullam, and the host of the Philistines encamped in the valley of Rephaim. 1 Chronicles chapter 20 verse 4. And it came to pass after this that there arose war at Gezer with the Philistines, at which time Sibbecai the Hushathite slew Sippai that was of the children of the giant, and they were subdued. Isaiah 17 verse 5. And it shall be as when the harvestman gathereth the corn, and reapeth the ears with his arm, and it shall be as he that gathereth ears in the valley of Rephaim. By reading all these passages, the student can know for himself many truths the Bible says about the mighty races of the giants before and after the flood. The giants have no resurrection, as do ordinary men. It is plainly stated that the giants, or the Rephaim, have no resurrection. We find this in Isaiah chapter 26, verse 14 through 19. They are dead, they shall not live, they are deceased, they shall not rise. Therefore hast thou visited and destroyed them, and made all their memory to perish. Thou hast increased the nations, O Lord. Thou hast increased the nations, thou art glorified. Thou hast removed it far unto all the ends of the earth. Lord, in trouble have they visited thee. They poured out a prayer when thy chastening was upon them, like as a woman with child that draweth near the time of her delivery is in pain, and crieth out in her pain. So have we been in thy sight, O Lord. We have been with child, we have been in pain, we have as it were brought forth wind. We have not wrought any deliverance in the earth, neither have the inhabitants of the world fallen. Thy dead men shall live, together with my dead body shall they arise. Awake and sing, ye that dwell in the dust, for thy dew is as the dew of the herbs, and the earth shall cast out the dead. O Lord our God, other lords or giant rulers of Canaan beside thee have had dominion over us. They are dead, they shall not live. They are deceased. The Hebrew word there is Rephaim. They shall not rise. Therefore hast thou visited and destroyed them. Thy dead men, that's the dead of God's people, or ordinary men, shall live. Together with my dead body shall they arise. We've just read that in Isaiah 26, 14 through 19. The giants are already in hell, for Isaiah reveals how when the Antichrist is put into hell, the dead, or the Rephaim, shall be stirred up to meet him. Isaiah 14 verse 9. Hell from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee, or the Rephaim for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth. It hath raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. Substitute Rephaim for dead also in these following scriptures. Proverbs 2:18. For her house inclineth unto death, and her paths unto the Rephaim. Proverbs 9:18. But he knoweth not that the Rephaim are there, and that her guests are in the depths of hell. Proverbs 21:16. The man that wandereth out of the way of understanding shall remain in the congregation of the Rephaim. Rapha, from the Hebrew word Rapha in the sense of the Hebrew 7503 Rapha, in effect a ghost, a dead or deceased, and that's found in the Hebrew Dictionary of Strong's Concordance, number 7496. Numbers 13:33, we're going to read about the offspring of the second eruption of fallen angels, and they were so great, mighty, and tall, and they inspired fear in the hearts of the 10 spies and all of Israel. Numbers 13:33, and there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which come of the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. Deuteronomy 2 verse 10 through 23. The Emims dwelt therein in times past, a people great and many and tall as the Anakims, which also were accounted giants as the Anakims, but the Moabites called them Emims. The Horims also dwelt in Seir before time, but the children of Esau succeeded them when they had destroyed them from before them, and dwelt in their stead, as Israel did unto the land of his possessions, which the Lord gave unto them. Now rise up, said I, and get you over the brook Zered. And we went over the brook Zered, and the space in which we came from Kadesh Barnea until we were come over the brook Zered was 38 years, until all the generations of the men of war were wasted out from among the host, as the Lord sware unto them. For indeed the hand of the Lord was against them to destroy them from among the host until they were consumed. So it came to pass, when all the men of war were consumed and dead from among the people, that the Lord spake unto me, saying, Thou art to pass over through Ar, the coast of Moab, this day, and when thou comest over against the children of Ammon, distress them not, nor meddle with them, for I will not give thee the land of the children of Ammon any possession, because I have given it unto the children of Lot for a possession. That also was accounted a land of giants. Giants dwelt therein in old time, and the Ammonites called them Zamzummim, a people great and many and tall as the Anakims. But the Lord destroyed them before them, and they succeeded them and dwelt in their stead, as he did to the children of Esau, which dwelt in Seir, when he destroyed the Horims from before them, and they succeeded them and dwelt in their stead even unto this day. And the Avims, which dwelt in Hazerim, even unto Azza, the Caphtorims, which came forth out of Caphtor, destroyed them and dwelt in their stead. Deuteronomy 9 verse 2. A people great and tall, the children of the Anakims, whom thou knowest, and of whom thou hast heard say, Who can stand before the children of Anak? In Deuteronomy 3 verse 11, Og, one of these giants, is mentioned as having a bedstead of iron about 18 feet 9 inches long and 8 feet 4 inches wide. Deuteronomy chapter 3 verse 11. For only Og, king of Bashan, remained of the remnant of the giants. Behold, his bedstead was a bedstead of iron. Is it not in Rabbath of the children of Ammon? 9 cubits was the length thereof, and 4 cubits the breadth of it, after the cubit of a man. He had a bedstead of iron, 18 feet 9 inches long, and 8 feet 4 inches wide. Goliath, whom David slew, was over 13 feet high. His coat of mail weighed 196 pounds. His spearhead alone weighed 25 pounds, as we just read in 2 Samuel chapter 17, verse 1 through 29. The spies that returned from Canaan said, We were in our own sight as grasshoppers as compared to the giants. We just read this in Numbers 13:33. In the Dictionary of Phrase and Fable by Brewer, page 514 through 17, there's a list of the giants of mythology and of real life. Mr. Brewer lists over 60 giants, and their lengths run from about 8 to 18 feet. He also lists several giants whose bones have been discovered, whose lengths were from 19 to 30 feet. Some giants of mythology are spoken of as being 300 foot tall. We cannot depend upon mythology, but we can depend upon the statements of the Bible concerning giants. There were such beings, and the stories of mythology are no doubt corruption in transmission of the traditions and legends of the biblical giant races. G. The progeny of the sons of God and the daughters of men prove that they were not ordinary men, and therefore were not the offspring of men. The giants were monsters of iniquity, and were abnormal in size and character, which man could not have reproduced according to the law of reproduction given by God, which was that everything on earth in nature should reproduce after his own kind. Genesis chapter 1, verse 21 through 25. And God created great whales and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good, and God blessed them, saying, Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth. And the evening and the morning were the 5th day. And God said, Let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beast of the earth after his kind. And it was so. And God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. Genesis 7:14. They and every beast after his kind, and all the cattle after their kind, and every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth after his kind, and every fowl after his kind, and every bird of every sort. Genesis 8:19, every beast, every creeping thing, and every fowl, and whatsoever creepeth upon the earth after their kinds went forth out of the ark. At any rate, that giants are not of pure human stock is too clear to deny with any degree of sanity. Then, too, we know that they were not the product of ordinary godly men and ungodly women, for we see on every hand today such unions, and not one giant has ever been reproduced in such families. They were not saved or godly men, for God said of Noah in Genesis chapter 7, verse 1, "Thee have I seen righteous before me in this generation." Noah's sons were saved from death because they were pure human stock, not because they were godly men. Only Noah and his family had preserved their pedigree pure from Adam, and this is really why they were saved in the ark. It was said of Noah that he was a just man and perfect in his generations. Genesis 6, verse 9, these are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God. The word perfect is found in the Hebrew Dictionary of Strong's Concordance, number 8549, as pronounced tamim, from the Hebrew 8552, tamam, entire, literal, figurative, or moral, also as a noun, integrity, truth, without blemish, complete, full, perfect, sincerely, or sincerity, sound, without spot, undefiled, upright, and whole. The word perfect is from the Hebrew word tanin, and it means without blemish, and is the technical word for bodily perfection and not moral perfection. Hence, it is used of the sacrificial animals of the Old Testament. They had to be pure stock and without blemish. Exodus 12, verse 5. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. Ye shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats. Leviticus 1, verse 3. If his offering be a burnt sacrifice of the herd, let him offer a male without blemish. He shall offer it of his own voluntary will at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation before the Lord. Leviticus 3, verse 1. And if his oblation be a sacrifice of peace offerings, if he offer it of the herd, whether it be a male or female, he shall offer it without blemish before the Lord. The purpose of Satan in this first eruption of fallen angels who lived with the daughters of men was to corrupt the human race and do away with pure Adamite stock, so that Christ, the seed of the woman, could not come into the world. This plan would have averted his own doom, as foretold in Genesis 3:15. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. He almost succeeded in doing away with the pure Adamite stock before the flood, for Noah and family were the only pure left, and all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. Genesis chapter 6, verse 8 through 13. The main purpose of the flood was to do away with this corruption of the human race and to preserve pure Adamite stock, to whom the seed of the woman should come as foretold. Though Satan was defeated in his plan before the flood, he did not halt with his plans. As soon as God gave the rainbow a promise that he would never send another flood, Satan no doubt concluded that because he had almost succeeded in doing away with the pure Adamite stock before the flood, and would have done it if God had not sent the flood, he may succeed a second time, since God had promised not to send another flood. He sent the second eruption of fallen angels to marry the daughters of men after the flood. They brought into being the giants after the flood, as we have seen. Because God had promised not to send another flood to destroy these giants, he now planned to raise up Israel as a great nation and use them to destroy every man, woman, and child of the giant races in order to preserve pure Adamite stock in the earth as planned. The two eruptions of fallen angels and the two races of giants in the earth is plainly taught in Genesis 6, verse 4. There were giants in the earth in those days, or before the flood, and also after that, or after the flood, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bare children unto them. Thus the story of races of giants caused by the angels marrying the daughters of men is plain in Scripture. These facts explain many statements concerning the war between God and Satan and between Israel and Satan in the Old Testament days, and they give us the real cause of the flood of Noah that ended the dispensation of conscience. Main point number 8, the judgment of God upon man ending the dispensation of conscience. The historical record of the flood of Noah is given us in Genesis chapter 6, verse 8 through chapter 8, verse 14, where the flood destroyed all humanity except Noah and his wife and his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their wives. The flood was necessary in order to preserve the human race and fulfill the prophecy of the coming of the seed of the woman. Judgment had to come because of man's failure to live up to the dictates of his conscience as to right and wrong. All flesh on the earth was destroyed except Noah and his 3 sons and their wives, and 2 of the unclean animals and 7 of the clean animals for replenishing the earth and for sacrificial purposes after the flood. We also saw this Genesis chapter 6, verse 8 through chapter 8, verse 19. When Noah came out of the ark after the flood, God re-established his covenant with mankind. Genesis 9, verse 10 through 18. And with every living creature that is with you, of the fowl, of the cattle, and of every beast of the earth with you, from all that go out of the ark to every beast of the earth. And I will establish my covenant with you. Neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of a flood, neither shall there any more be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, This is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth. And it shall come to pass, when I bring a cloud over the earth, that the bow shall be seen in the cloud. And I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and the water shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh, and the bow shall be seen in the cloud, and I will look upon it, that I may remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, This is the token of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is upon the earth. And the sons of Noah that went forth of the ark were Shem, and Ham, and Japheth, and Ham is the father of Canaan. Next time we'll get into a study of the size of Noah's ark and some questions concerning Noah's ark.